What if, right now, someone told you this was your last language lesson, ever? No warning, no goodbye. Just silence where words used to live. That's exactly what happens in The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet, a haunting story set in the Alsace region of France, just after the Franco-Prussian War. When Prussia bans the teaching of French, an ordinary school day turns into a moment of heartbreak and awakening. The story dives deep into the pain of losing your language, the pride of your homeland, and the crushing regret that comes only when it's too late to hold on. Let's start the story. I left for school very late that morning and was dreading a scolding, especially since Mr. Hamel had said he would be asking us about participles, and I didn't know the first thing about them. For a moment, I thought about skipping school and spending the day outside. The weather was so warm and bright. Birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field behind the sawmill, Prussian soldiers were drilling. All of that seemed far more tempting than memorizing the rules for participles. But I managed to resist and hurried off to school. When I passed the town hall, I noticed a crowd gathered in front of the bulletin board. For the past 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The lost battles, the draft, and the commanding officer's orders. I thought to myself, without stopping, what can be the matter now? As I hurried along as quickly as I could, the blacksmith, Wachter, who was there with his apprentice reading the bulletin, called after me, "Don't rush, kid. You'll still get to school in plenty of time." I thought he was making fun of me, and I reached Mr. Hamel's little garden completely out of breath. Usually, when school began, there was a great deal of bustle that could be heard out in the street. The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison, very loudly, with our hands over our ears to hear better, and the teacher's heavy ruler rapping on the table. But now, everything was so still. I had counted on the usual commotion to slip into my desk unnoticed, but of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as a Sunday morning. Through the window, I saw my classmates already seated, and Mr. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler tucked under his arm. I had to open the door and enter in front of everyone. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I felt, but nothing happened. Mr. Hamel saw me and said kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you." I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Only then, when I had somewhat recovered from my fright, did I notice that our teacher was wearing his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and his little black silk cap, all embroidered, clothes he never wore except on inspection and prize days. Moreover, the whole school seemed so unusual and solemn. What surprised me most was seeing the village people sitting quietly on the back benches, which were always empty. There was old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several others besides. Everyone looked sad. Hauser had even brought an old primer, its pages worn at the edges, which he held open on his knees, with his large spectacles resting across the pages. While I was pondering all of this, Mr. Hamel mounted his chair, and, in the same grave yet gentle tone he had used with me, said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new teacher arrives tomorrow. This is your final French lesson. I want you to pay very close attention." What a thunderclap these words were to me. Oh, the wretches, that was what they had posted at the town hall. My last French lesson. Why, I hardly knew how to write. I would never learn anything more. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I felt for not studying my lessons, for seeking birds' eggs, or for going sliding on the Saar. My books, which had seemed such a nuisance a short while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints, had become old friends I could not part with. And Mr. Hamel too. The thought that he was leaving, that I would never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how strict he could be. Poor man. It was in honor of this last lesson that he had donned his fine Sunday clothes. And now I understood why the elderly men of the village were sitting in the back of the room. It was because they too were regretful that they had not attended school more often. It was their way of expressing gratitude to our teacher for his 40 years of devoted service and of showing respect for the country that was no longer theirs. While I was thinking about all of this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to recite that dreadful rule for the participle perfectly, very loudly and clearly, without a single mistake? But I stumbled over the first words and stood there, gripping my desk, my heart pounding, and not daring to look up. I heard Mr. Hamel say to me, "I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we tell ourselves, 'Bah, I have plenty of time. I'll learn it tomorrow.' And now you see where that has brought us. Ah, that's the great trouble with Alsace. She always puts off learning until tomorrow. Now those fellows out there will have the right to say to you, 'How is it? You pretend to be Frenchmen, and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language.' But you are not the worst, poor little Franz. We all have much to reproach ourselves for. Your parents were not concerned enough to ensure that you learned. They preferred to have you work on the farm or at the mills, so as to earn a little more money. And me, I have been to blame as well. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of studying your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not simply give you a holiday?" Then, from one topic to another, Mr. Hamel began to speak about the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest and most logical, and that we must preserve it among ourselves and never forget it. For when a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they possess the key to their prison. Then he opened a grammar book and read us our lesson. I was amazed at how well I understood it. Everything he said seemed so simple, so clear. I also realized that I had never listened so attentively, and that he had never explained anything with so much patience. It almost seemed as if the poor man wanted to impart all that he knew before leaving, and to instill it into our minds in a single lesson. After the grammar lesson, we had a writing lesson. That day, Mr. Hamel had brought new copybooks for us, written in a beautiful, round hand. France, Alsace, France, Alsace. They looked like little flags floating throughout the classroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desks. You should have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of pens on paper. At one point, some beetles flew in, but nobody paid them any attention, not even the youngest students, who continued carefully tracing their fishhooks, as if that too were French. On the roof, the pigeons cooed very softly, and I thought to myself, will they make even the pigeons sing in German? Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw Mr. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair, gazing first at one thing and then at another, as if he wanted to commit to memory exactly how everything looked in that little classroom. Imagine. For 40 years, he had been in the same place, with his garden outside the window and his class before him, just like that. Only the desks and benches had been worn smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hop vine he had planted himself had twined around the windows all the way to the roof. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man. To hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks. For they were to leave the country the next day. But he had the courage to conduct every lesson to the very end. After the writing lesson, we had a history lesson, and then the youngest students chanted their ba, bay, bai, bo, boo. At the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and, holding his primer in both hands, carefully spelled out the letters. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotion, and it was so touching that we all wanted to both laugh and cry. Ah, how vividly I remember that last lesson. "My friends," he said. But something choked him, and he could not continue. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and exerting all his strength, wrote as large as he could, "Vive la France." Then he stopped, leaned his head against the wall, and without a word, made a gesture to us with his hand. "School is dismissed. You may go."